I cannot afford to lend money to an incompetent craftsman drowning in debt. He must repay the full $500,000 by the end of this month. A new loan officer named Wilson, a woman, arrived at my office. I've been a craftsman for 35 years, and she immediately demanded the termination of the loan and the repayment of $500,000 in full. Lending money to an old woman working in an office on the brink of collapse due to debt doesn't ensure repayment. It's better to pay it all back while you're still alive. Wilson's extremely rude behavior made me explode with anger. Got it. Pay back the $500,000 in full, right? I said. Fine, but you'll regret this, I added. When I promised to repay the $500,000 in full, Wilson burst out laughing, holding her stomach, as if a lousy banker like me will definitely regret this. I declared my retaliation against Wilson in a low voice, but it seemed she didn't hear it. I ignored Wilson, who continued to laugh loudly. My name is Smith, and at the age of 60, I am still active as a gardener. I started working as a gardener 35 years ago at Smith Landscape Design, a company I now run as president. After graduating from high school, I joined the company that my dad was managing at the time. Becoming a skilled gardener takes many years as it requires artisan skills. I was first allowed to handle a job alone at the age of 25, and exactly 10 years ago, I took over as president when my dad, the previous president, was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Once it was common for houses to have gardens, but with the changing times, the number of condominiums and apartments has increased, and the demand for gardeners has decreased. But neither my dad nor I have ever thought of quitting our jobs. Even today, a certain number of people live in houses with gardens. Many of them are elderly and find it difficult to tend to their gardens due to back pain and unsteady legs. Our business had declined temporarily, but as rival landscaping companies continue to close, we no longer lose customers to other companies. I want to continue developing the business as a landscaping company loved by the community. At 60, I'm older, but I'm still active and will continue to be. I'm determined to stabilize the business so that my children can confidently take over when I no longer can work. That was my resolution. Then, one day, a banker named Brown appeared at the office of Smith Landscape Design, which I run. Brown has been our loan officer since the day when my dad was president. I'm sorry to say this on a personal note, but I've decided to retire. I am very grateful for all the support Smith has given me. My successor will be Wilson from our bank, Brown said politely, standing next to a woman who appeared to be in her 20s. A young female banker named Wilson greeted me briefly. Thank you. I eagerly anticipated the opportunity to collaborate with Wilson. However, when I greeted her, Wilson remained unresponsive. Our conversation transitioned into small talk with Brown, and I didn't exchange a single word with the new officer, Wilson. She was young, so perhaps she hadn't yet mastered the expected manners of the business world. Nevertheless, I couldn't shake the concern about entrusting our finances to someone like her. Shortly after the banker handling our account retired, Wilson paid a visit to my company's office. Hello, I'm Wilson from Trust Bank. My boss instructed me to visit customers, so here I am to greet you, she said. I was taken aback by Wilson's attitude, rendering me momentarily speechless. Was it customary to inform a client that you're visiting because your boss said so? Thank you for taking the time to come here, I managed to reply, though my forced smile likely conveyed my underlying feelings. Wilson responded with an annoyed look. What's with that tone? Are you implying that I shouldn't have come? She retorted. No, it's not that. It's just unusual to hear someone so frankly state that they're visiting a client because their boss told them to, I replied, irritated by Wilson's presumptuous attitude. I was just stating the facts. Anyway, I'm busy. I don't have time to waste on meaningless things like this. She abruptly ended the conversation and left. In all my 60 years of life, I had never encountered someone so rude. After Wilson departed, I was so stunned that for a moment, I questioned if it had all been a dream or an illusion. Within a week, Wilson visited our office again. As soon as she arrived, her face flushed with anger as she began yelling at me. "You apologize to me right now. If you offer a profound apology, I won't involve the police. I'll settle this matter without their intervention." "I'm sorry," I uttered, taken aback by her sudden outburst. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you please explain?" I admitted, utterly perplexed by her accusation. I had no clue what she was referring to. "Don't play dumb. An employee of yours demanded $100,000 from my grandmother for unsolicited garden maintenance and told her to transfer it to a specified account," Wilson accused. I was shocked to hear this accusation against our employee. But upon reflection, our company only deals in cash payments. We would never have our customers transfer their money to a certain account. We collect payment in cash directly from our customers upon completion of our work. "Do you have any proof that an employee of our company did what you're accusing us of?" I retorted confidently. Wilson responded with equal force. "My grandmother clearly said that someone named Williams from Smith Landscape Design called her. She was deceived and paid $100,000. You're the president, right? Take responsibility. We have 80 employees, including gardeners, apprentices, sales, and accounting staff. But I was sure there was no one named Williams in our company." "Please give me a moment to check," I requested, returning to the office. Upon returning to Wilson with the employee roster, I stated, "Due to privacy concerns, I can't show you this, but I have confirmed that there is no one named Williams in our company." "Oh, I see. You're determined to deny your responsibility. If that's how you want to play it, I'll think of a good strategy. You better be prepared," Wilson warned before leaving. I wondered what she was planning, her face haunting me whether I was awake or asleep. A few days later, Wilson came to my office again. "I have no money to lend to a useless craftsman buried in debt. Pay back the full $500,000 by the end of this month," Wilson demanded as soon as she arrived at the office. It didn't seem like the bank's directive. Could this be her own decision? "Why do you think our office is in deficit? And why is it necessary to repay the full loan amount this month? Please explain," I calmly requested. Despite my composed request for an explanation, Wilson continued with disrespectful words, smiling condescendingly. "An old lady as the president, of course you're in the red. Moreover, there's no demand for landscaping nowadays. Better pay it all back while you're still alive," she sneered. Then Wilson whispered something even more shocking in my ear. "Well, that's just the official reason. If you pay back the $500,000, 5 times the $100,000 your company supposedly cost my grandmother, I'll let this go." At Wilson's outrageous behavior, my anger exploded. "I get it. Paying back $500,000 in full, right? Fine, but you'll regret this." I conceded, agreeing to repay the $500,000 in full. Wilson burst out laughing, as if the one who would regret it was me, an old lady. "Can you even pay back $500,000 in full? You'll only be laughing for now. A terrible bank like you will definitely regret this," Wilson jeered. I declared my retaliation against Wilson in a low voice. But it seemed she didn't hear me. I ignored Wilson, who continued to laugh loudly. The next day, I called the bank and spoke with the customer service representative. "Hello, I'm Smith. Thank you for your usual support. Could you please tell your loan officer, Wilson, to stop coming to my office? It's causing us trouble," I requested. "I'm terribly sorry. The branch manager will head over to your place immediately," the representative responded before apologizing. As the representative was about to hang up, I overheard someone nearby, perhaps another bank employee, saying something about Wilson again. How many times has it been now? This implied that Wilson might have been repeating similar actions with other clients. Stepping outside the office, I found Wilson waiting for me. "Oh, there you are, old lady. Hiding won't help. If you don't want to be reported to the police, sign these papers right away," Wilson demanded aggressively, presenting documents to terminate our loan agreement. Is this the bank's decision or just yours? I questioned. My opinion is the bank's opinion, obviously. Anyway, a fraud like you has no right to complain. Just sign it, Wilson insisted. I just called the bank. The branch manager is on his way, and I'll sign it then, I replied. Wilson's face suddenly turned pale. What? Why did you call the bank? I thought you were just trying to avoid me by not leaving your office, Wilson stammered, visibly unsettled and looking like she wanted to flee. Just then, a bike stopped behind Wilson. I ushered the branch manager, who had just gotten off the bike with a worried expression, and a resentful Wilson into our office's reception area. I am terribly sorry for the inappropriate behavior of our staff member Wilson. It's inexcusable. The manager apologized politely, then glared sharply at Wilson. Why would you do this to one of our most valued customers who has always supported our bank? But this person is a fraud. She scammed $100,000 from my grandmother, Wilson interjected, even while being scolded by the manager, insisting on portraying me as the villain. I explained everything to the branch manager about Wilson's actions. The manager then said to Wilson, "If you heard your own grandmother was scammed, would you go straight to the scammer to complain? Wouldn't you normally report it to the police first?" I was too distraught to think clearly. If your own family was scammed, could you calmly report it to the police without hesitation? I bet you couldn't, I challenged Wilson. Her defiant attitude made the manager sigh deeply. If you check the customer's information, you should see that Smith is a valued customer. Plus, if there's no one named Williams on Smith Landscape Design's employee roster, it's possible that an outsider pretended to be an employee and made the call, I explained. Wilson seemed to finally realize the possibility of an outsider's involvement. Her expression suddenly changed, and she fell silent. We confirmed Wilson's grandmother's name and address, but there was no record of any landscaping request from her. Moreover, her grandmother lived in public housing. Unless the local government specifically requests our services, we would not perform any work there. In any case, shouldn't the first step be to report it to the police? I suggested. Wilson flinched at my words but ignored them, looking anxiously at the branch manager. It's unbelievable an outsider did this, but it's just a $500,000 loan termination. It's not a big deal, right? You make a fuss over your grandmother being scammed out of $100,000. But you think terminating a loan 5 times that amount is no big deal, Wilson argued. The manager's glare seemed to make Wilson realize it was best to stay quiet. She said nothing more. Wilson may have graduated from a prestigious university, but her humanity is failing. Decisions like terminating a loan cannot be made by a bank employee alone. Such actions require reporting it to and approval from the branch manager, me. Someone who doesn't understand this basic principle has no right to continue working as a banker. We will take strict disciplinary action against Wilson. The manager apologized to me and led Wilson away, almost dragging her by the collar. Alone, I reflected on my past interactions with the bank. Actually, our company currently isn't in a position where we struggle with cash flow without loans. However, we have been receiving loans for the bank mainly as a way to maintain our relationship. Initially, I couldn't understand why we would borrow money when we had enough. My father told me that Smith Landscape Design, founded by my grandfather, had faced several financial crises. It was the banks we had relationships with that helped us each time. Banks have lending targets, and they strive to meet them. But when a business is in trouble and seeks help, banks often hesitate to lend if the performance outlook is poor. Therefore, it's important to take loans when we can afford them to build a repayment record and trust with the bank. This way, they are more likely to help us when we are in need. That's why we have been periodically taking loans. Yet, what was the meaning behind this recent behavior? A novice banker lacking even basic social manners, a branch manager who let such an employee run free. It was clear that the trust we had built was crumbling. I started to feel uneasy about entrusting our important money, let alone receiving loans, to such a bank. After consulting with my family, I made a decision. The next day, I went to Trust Bank to convey my decision. I had informed them of my visit in advance, so upon my arrival, I was immediately shown to the reception room. There, I found the branch manager and Wilson, who both greeted me politely as I entered. Facing their bowed heads, I said, "Regarding the loan, it's fine to terminate it. Fortunately, we haven't used it yet, so we will repay it immediately." Upon hearing my words, the branch manager quickly sat up in alarm. "Mr. Smith, please don't worry about the loan. We have a long-standing relationship. I hope we can continue working together," the manager almost pleaded. But my decision was firm. If I hadn't called the bank, what would have become of Wilson? She would still be coming to my office, hurling insults and rudeness, wouldn't she? I can't trust a bank that allows such employees to run rampant. I'm sorry, but I have to end our relationship. I am truly sorry for what happened. We will take strict action against Wilson. Such an incident will not happen again. Please, won't you continue doing business with us?" the manager said, trying to persuade me. The manager's words didn't resonate with me. "No matter what you say, my decision won't change," I stated firmly. As I was pushing the branch manager away, the reception room door was abruptly opened. A bank employee rushed in, clearly in a panic. From their demeanor, I could tell something had happened. "Excuse me, I must leave," I said as the manager stood up to leave the reception room. A woman's loud voice could be heard. "When I visited your bank the other day, a banker named Wilson said to me, 'We don't lend money to the incompetent.' What kind of training do you give your bankers?" The manager turned back with a worried look. Seeing his reaction, I was convinced that I wasn't the only one affected. He began, but his gaze shifted from me to somewhere else. Following his line of sight, I saw Wilson biting her nails, mumbling to herself. The branch manager quickly approached Wilson. "You're fired as of today. Get out of here right now," he said, pointing to the door. It seemed unexpected, and Wilson, her face turning pale, stared intently at the branch manager before suddenly standing up. Then, with a fluid motion, she made a deep apology. "Please don't fire me. I beg you," she pleaded, but it felt hollow. It was fortunate for us that we didn't rely on the loan, but many businesses must have been seriously affected. Though Wilson didn't have the final say, the thought of businesses being troubled by someone like her was distressing. "Do you have any idea how many valued customers we've lost because of you? Your dismissal is the only option. Please give me another chance," the manager argued. "Enough. You're fired," he finally said. Their argument seemed endless. Realizing that watching any longer was a waste of time, I left. Standing up and drawing their attention, I decided to say one last thing to Wilson, who was pathetically clinging to the manager. "Wilson, remember you said I wouldn't regret it. This is the result. It's all your own doing," I stated firmly. At my words, Wilson collapsed in despair. Later, the branch manager came to inform me about Wilson's dismissal, pleading, "Please give us another chance." But of course, I refused. Wilson was wrong for her outrageous behavior towards customers, but the branch manager, who let it continue, was also responsible. It seemed other customers felt the same way. The customer exodus didn't stop, and eventually, the branch was closed, and the building was demolished. The site was turned into a park. About a half-year later, I saw a woman who resembled Wilson, but she was so tanned it was hard to tell if it was really her. However, it was likely her. "You claim to be a former elite banker, but can't even get this right," I thought, seeing her being scolded by a senior. After her dismissal from the bank, she seemed to have become a traffic guard at a construction site, tanned and sweating, being yelled at over the radio. No one would guess that she once was a banker. Watching Wilson, I hoped that this tough job might bring a slight change of heart in her. Meanwhile, I took on the landscaping for the park that replaced the bank. Our business suddenly got busier. People seeing our Smith landscape design truck parked during work led to an increase in requests. We started getting requests for grass maintenance and shared areas of parks, condominiums, and apartments being used to maintaining gardens for detached houses. This was somewhat unfamiliar. But to continue thriving as a gardener, adapting to the diverse needs of various clients might be essential. I wanted to keep contributing as a gardener and watching our business grow.